Unified dynamics. Distinction theory.
All right, let's dive right into this explainer and explore a seriously mind-bending hypothesis, one that could literally redefine everything we thought we knew about the absolute largest planet in our solar system. For centuries, we have looked up at Jupiter through our telescopes and seen this massive, swirling ball of gas. But what if we're actually only seeing a shadow? What if this giant planet we think we know so well is really just a three-dimensional projection of a much larger, higher-dimensional structure? Today, we are going to unpack the source material behind an incredibly fascinating theoretical framework that challenges the very foundation of how we perceive astrophysical bodies. To really understand why physicists are out there looking for such radical new explanations, we have to start with Jupiter's most famous feature, right? The Great Red Spot. It presents a massive, glaring problem in standard fluid dynamics. Think about the weather here on Earth for a second. Storms are chaotic, they're unpredictable, and inevitably they run out of steam and dissipate. I mean, fluid dynamics is basically the physics of chaos. And yet, on Jupiter, this swirling atmospheric vortex simply refuses to die. According to standard mathematical models of how gas should behave, a storm like this just shouldn't be able to maintain its coherence for as long as it has without completely succumbing to chaotic fluid failure.
350. That is the absolute minimum number of years we know for an established fact that this single storm has been raging. It has literally outlived entire human empires. We first observed it back in the 1600s, and you know what? It is still spinning today. This sheer scale of anomaly really forces us to stop and ask a crazy question. Is it possible that the Great Red Spot isn't actually a storm at all?
And that brings us to the core tension we are exploring in this explainer. On one hand, we have the traditional view, standard fluid dynamics. This paints Jupiter as a chaotic, 3D ball of gas, relying on incredibly complex and, honestly, sometimes mathematically strained models to try and explain its long-term stability. But completely challenging this is a radical new model called higher-order projections. This framework suggests that the gaseous nature of Jupiter isn't fundamentally a property of the matter itself. Instead, it's just what we happen to see when a higher-order, completely coherent geometric structure projects partially into our 3D observational space.
So this whole idea comes from a theoretical framework called unified dynamics. It basically proposes that physical reality is built on a recursively organized geometric substrate. In this view, the universe isn't just a bunch of independent particles floating around in an empty, dark void. It's actually a foundational network of pure geometry. And within this framework, some of the most massive observable objects out there, like gas giants, are actually just 3D ghosts, or projections of higher dimensional entities that our 3D measurements simply cannot directly access.
Let's try a little mental exercise to really visualize what this means. Imagine you're looking right at Jupiter. At first, you see that familiar swirling 3D gas atmosphere. But then, imagine you begin to strip that gas away, realizing it isn't a chaotic soup at all. It's actually a metadata signature, like a footprint, carrying only a tiny fraction of the object's true data. As that gas just melts away in your mind, it reveals a glowing, discrete, geometric wireframe. You're not looking at a ball of gas. You are looking at the 3D shadow cast by a highly structured, coherent geometric entity.
Now, what's really interesting is if we zoom all the way from the macro scale of Jupiter down to the micro topology of the universe itself, Unified Dynamics argues that this geometric wireframe isn't just random shapes, it's built on a tetrahedral substrate. At the absolute microscopic foundation of the universe, reality is constructed from complete K4 graphs, which is just the mathematical term for tetrahedrons. These tiny four-sided pyramids dictate exactly how mass, energy, and information project from higher dimensions down into the 3D world we can actually observe.
And this projection we're talking about, it follows exact mathematically derived ratios straight from that tetrahedral geometry. According to the framework, the gas we see making up Jupiter is just a 25% fraction of the total entity. It's that carried metadata we mentioned earlier. The vast majority of the structure, the remaining 75%, exists entirely in a higher order space. It is actively developing and maintaining the structure, but it's completely hidden from our three-dimensional vantage point.
So let's zoom in even closer into that 25% that actually does project into our 3D space. The tetrahedral skeleton breaks down even further. A basic tetrahedral skeleton has 4 vertices, or points, and 6 edges, the connecting lines. So that is 10 parts total. The mathematics of the substrate dictate that the edges make up 60% of the skeleton, while the vertices make up the other 40%. But here is the kicker.
Only the edges, the transport channels, manifest as visible matter. The vertices, which are pure positions, remain totally hidden.
So stay with me here because this is the absolute crucial point. If you take that 60% visible edge content and you apply it to the 25% total projection, you get exactly 15%. This is an incredibly specific structural claim from the source material. It mathematically derives that exactly 15% of the total entity manifests as visible matter in our universe. This gives us a rigorous geometry-based explanation for exactly what fraction of reality we can actually observe through standard physical measurements.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for what you and I see when we look at Jupiter? The lines or edges of the geometric structure form the visible world. They are the glowing transport channels we perceive as gaseous matter. Meanwhile, those connecting nodes, the vertices, they filter right out of 3D visibility. They actually hide a massive amount of unseen gravitating dark mass. Therefore, the gas of Jupiter isn't gas in the traditional molecular sense we're used to. It is simply the appearance of this specific geometric projection when only those edge channels are visible to us.
And this brilliantly brings us full circle back to our earlier mystery about Jupiter's weather. Under this new framing, the Great Red Spot is absolutely not a chaotic fluid storm. The reason it never dies is because it is actually the rigid anchor of a higher order structure. It is the 3D visible signature of an incredibly stable, higher dimensional geometric entity projecting down into our reality. Its stability comes straight from the substrate's geometry, not from the atmospheric conditions of the planet.
This paradigm shift is just brilliant because it beautifully resolves several of astrophysics' greatest mysteries regarding gas giants. It's genuinely fascinating how neatly it ties up these loose ends. First, as we just saw, it explains centuries of storm stability without relying on really unlikely fluid dynamics. Second, it suggests that Jupiter's deep atmosphere doesn't just terminate at a solid 3D rocky core. Instead, descending deeper simply means you're getting closer to the higher order of the projection. And third, it totally redefines the massive magnetic fields of gas giants as the visible 3D signatures of their 4D structural coherence.
Now, it's absolutely vital that we pause for a second and build an epistemic firewall right here. The source text itself is extremely careful to point out that this is a structural reading, not a validated test. Specific predictions require substrate development that simply hasn't been done yet. We have to impartially remember that this is a theoretical candidate. Yes, it uses an incredibly elegant mathematical framework that perfectly aligns with observed ratios of visible matter, but it is still awaiting rigorous predictive testing. It's an entirely new way to read the universe, but it is not yet confirmed physics.
But you know, even as a theoretical candidate, it leaves us with an absolutely profound question. The Unified Dynamics framework provides a structurally coherent reason to believe that our 3D physics is really only partial physics. So if the largest planet in our solar system is essentially just a 3D shadow cast by a higher dimensional geometric entity, what else in our universe is hiding its true shape?